The final music stand, the UNS Defiance, hung in the black void like a wounded bird with broken wings, once a proud cargo hauler that transported mining equipment across the outer colonies. The ship now served as humanity's last barrier between the Krellian Armada and 3 million souls on Epsilon Ridge below. Captain Sarah Chin gripped the command chair as another explosion rocked the bridge. Sparks rained from overhead panels. The view screen flickered, showing the night outside. 40 Krellian warships surrounded them in a perfect killing formation. Each vessel was twice the size of the Defiance, their hulls covered in bioorganic armor that pulsed with sickly green light. They had been hunting human colonies for months, claiming the outer territories belonged to their ancient empire. Epsilon Ridge was next on their list of conquests. Chin wiped blood from her forehead where a piece of shrapnel had grazed her during the last attack. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. These were not trained military personnel. They were miners, cargo handlers, farmers, and teachers who had volunteered when the Krellian fleet appeared in their system. They had families down on that planet, children waiting for parents who might never come home. The communication system crackled to life with a voice that sounded like gravel grinding against metal. Master Zarks of the Krellian Imperial Fleet spoke in perfect English, his words dripping with contempt. Human vessel, your resistance ends now. You have defended nothing. You have achieved nothing. You will surrender your ship and the colony below, or we will erase both from existence. You have 30 seconds to comply. Chen looked at her tactical officer Marcus Webb, a former mining foreman who had lost his wife to a Krellian raid 3 months ago. His jaw was set firm, eyes burning with quiet rage. She glanced at her navigator, young Alina Vasquez, barely 20 years old, who had been studying astrophysics before the war reached her world. The girl's hands shook, but she remained at her post. Captain called out James Porter from engineering. His voice came through the damaged intercom system, crackling with static. Reactors at 15%. Shields are gone. Weapons offline. Life support is failing in sections 4 through 9. We've got maybe 10 minutes before the core goes critical. Anyway, Chin closed her eyes for a brief moment. 10 minutes. The Krellians were giving them 30 seconds. She thought about the families below, the children playing in the dome cities, the farmers tending crops under artificial suns, the dreamers who came to Epsilon Ridge seeking a new beginning. All of them would die if the Krellians won here. 20 seconds. Human Zarks continued, your silence is expected. Your kind always breaks in the end. Something inside Chin snapped. Not fear, not despair, but a fierce burning clarity. She stood from her command chair and addressed her crew. Her voice was steady, calm, like she was discussing the weather instead of their imminent death. Listen to me, all of you. We cannot win this fight with weapons. We cannot outrun them. We cannot hide. But we can make sure our lives count for something. Marcus looked up from his console. Captain, the reactor is dying. Anyway, Shin continued, but we still have engine power. We can accelerate. We can aim this ship like a bullet straight into their command vessel. The impact alone would tear their flagship apart. The explosion from our reactor going critical would scatter the rest of their fleet. The bridge fell silent except for the groaning of damaged systems and the distant wail of alarms. Alina's face Went pale, that means we all, yes, Shin. Said quietly, it means none of us go home, but 3 million people down there. Do, our families, our friends, everyone. We swore to protect when we took this. Posting 10 seconds, Zarthx announced, I grow tired of waiting. James Porter's voice came through the intercom again. But this time it was different. Stronger, Captain, this is engineering. If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, I can reroute every last drop of power we have left into the main engines. One burn straight and fast. No turning back. Chin felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. Jim, you understand what that means? Yeah. Captain, it means the Krellians learn that humans don't surrender. It means our kids grow up free. Do it. Around the bridge, one by one, her crew stood at attention. Marcus first, then Alina. Then every single person at their stations. No one spoke, but their message was clear. They were ready. 5 seconds. Human for 3. Chin activated the shipwide communication channel. Her voice reached every remaining crew member scattered throughout the dying vessel. All hands, this is Captain Chin. We are out of time and out of options. What we do have is one chance to save everyone we love. I am ordering full engine burn directly into the Krellian flagship. Anyone who objects, speak now. Silence answered her. Then from the lower decks someone started singing. It was an old Earth song, simple and defiant. Others joined in, their voices merging into a chorus that filled the ship with sound. They sang about home, about standing firm, about never giving in. 2 When your time is. Chin cut the channel to the Krellians and slammed her hand down on the engine control. Override. Jim, give me everything we have left. The Defiance shuddered as its massive cargo engines, built to push millions of tons across star systems, roared to life one final time. The ship lurched forward, accelerating with impossible speed. The crew braced themselves as the vessel transformed from a dying wreck into a kinetic missile. On the view screen, the Krellian flagship grew larger with each passing second. Chin could see the bioorganic ports opening along its hull, weapons charging for the killing shot. But they were too slow. The Defiance was already committed, already flying faster than the Krellians could track. Chin reached out and took Marcus's hand. He squeezed back. Alina whispered a prayer in Spanish. The engineering crew sang louder. The last thing Captain Sarah Chin saw was the horrified realization in Warm Master ZX's eyes as the Defiance's bow struck his flagship at 30,000 km per hour. Metal screamed. Energy erupted. The reactor core exploded with the force of a small star going supernova. The Krellian flagship split in half like rotten fruit. The shock wave tore through the Armada formation, crippling 6 ships instantly and sending the rest spinning out of control. Secondary explosions bloomed across the fleet as their tightly packed formation became their downfall. On Epsilon Ridge below, 3 million people watched the sky light up with fire. They watched their protectors become a shooting star that saved them all. And in the silence that followed, they knew that humanity had paid a terrible price for their freedom, but they also knew something else. The Krellians had learned a lesson written in flame and fury. Humanity does not surrender, not in 30 seconds, not ever. The echo of defiance. James Porter opened his eyes to darkness and the taste of copper in his mouth. His entire body felt like it had been thrown through a bulkhead which considering the circumstances might actually be true. The emergency pods left support system beeped weakly beside his head. Red emergency lights post in rhythm with his racing heartbeat. It was a laugh, and that realization hit him harder than any physical pain. The last thing he remembered was Captain Chen's order, the engine roar, and then the violent ejection as the automated systems fired his escape pod. Milliseconds before impact, I had fought against the restraints, screaming for the pod to stop, wanting to die with his crew, with his friends, but the pod had not cared about his wishes. It had followed its programming and launched him into the void, while everyone else flew straight into eternity. Porter's fingers fumbled for the pod's external camera controls. The display flickered to life, and what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Debris field stretched in every direction, graveyard of twisted metal and frozen atmosphere. Pieces of the Defiance floated past his viewport, scorched and broken. Among them drifted the shattered remains of Krellian vessels, their bioorganic holes torn open like crushed insects. Flagship was gone completely. Where it had once commanded the Armada now existed only expanding clouds of gas and spinning wreckage. The remaining Krellian ships were scattered across the system, many of them dark and laughless, others limping away with visible damage trailing behind them like blood and water. They had done it. The Defiance had broken the Armada's back with one desperate act of defiance. But the cost was 37 laughs, T7 people who would never see another sunrise, never hold their loved ones again, never know that their sacrifice had worked. Border's hands shook as he noticed something clipped to his chest harness. A small black data recorder, military grade, designed to survive anything short of a direct nuclear blast. It pulled it free and stared at it, confused. It did not remember grabbing this. Thin memory flooded back in fragments. Before the final burn, Captain Chin had grabbed him in the corridor outside engineering. Her face was streaked with gram and determination. She had pressed the recorder into his hands and spoken quickly. Jim, get to Escape Pod 7, Dawn. Someone needs to survive this. Someone needs to tell them what happened here. What we chose, why we chose it. I had tried to refuse, but she had already sealed the engineering bay door between them. Throughout the viewport he had seen her smile one last time before turning away to complete her final duty. The automated systems must have dragged him to the pot and launched it against his will. Now he held humanity's testimony in his hands. The black box contained sensor logs, communication records, and most importantly, the final words of everyone aboard the Defiance. Their choice, they sacrifice. Their message to the galaxy. The pod's navigation system began chirping urgently. Epsilon Ridge was pulling him in with its gravity. The automated descent sequence initiated, and Porter could only hold on as the small craft began its burning entry into the planet's atmosphere. It clutched the black box to his chest like a sacred relic and prayed he would survive long enough to deliver it. The landing was rough. The pod's heat shield barely held together as it screamed through the sky, leaving a trail of fire that could be seen from every settlement on Epsilon Ridge. When the crash webbing finally released him, Porter kicked open the hatch and stumbled onto red soil under a dome-filtered sun. People were running toward him from all directions. Colonists in workglow, children pointing at the smoking pod and security. Personnel pushing through the crowd. An older woman reached him first, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You're from the Defiance. We watched you, we saw what you did up there." Porter's legs gave out and strong hands caught him before he hit the ground. Someone was calling for medical assistance. Others were asking questions he could not process. All he could do was hold up the black box with trembling hands. "They saved you. I love them, Captain Chin. Marcus, Alina, everyone. They chose to save you." The woman took the recorder carefully like it was made of glass. They are streamed down her weather face. "We know, the whole colony knows. We saw the Defiance fly into that monster like an angel of vengeance. We thought everyone was gone. Everyone is gone." Porter whispered, "Except me. And I should not be here." Medical teams arrived and began treating his injuries. But Porter barely noticed. He says were fixed on the sky where debris still streaked through the atmosphere like falling stars. Each one was a piece of the ship, a fragment of the vessel that had been his home, that had carried heroes to their deaths. The colony mobilized immediately. We know engineers were extracting data from the black box while Porter recovered in the medical center. The recording spread through Epsilon Ridge like wildfire. People gathered in public squares to listen to Captain Chen's final address, to hear Marcus Webb's defiant laughter, to weep at Alina Vasquez's singing moments before impact. But the recordings contained more than just final words. The Defiance's sensors had mapped the entire Krellian fleet. Formation identified their communication frequencies, documented their tactical responses, and recorded their technology signatures. This intelligence was worth more than gold. It was the key to humanity's survival. 3 days after Porter's landing, the colony's long-range transmitter finally came back online after being damaged in the initial Krellian assault. The governor herself came to Porter's hospital bed with a secure data chip. "We've encoded everything from the black box, tactical data, personal messages. All of it. S needs to know what happened here. They need to understand what your crew gave us." Porter set up despite the protests from medical staff. His ribs were wrapped, his left arm in a sling. But his eyes were clear and focused. "Send it all, Avery Warp. I censor reading. Make sure they know that Captain Sarah Chin and her crew did not die in vain. Make sure they know that when humanity is cornered, we do not beg for mercy, we become the weapon." The transmission burst toward Earth at light speed, carrying the testament of the Defiance across the stars. It would take weeks to arrive, but Porter knew it would change everything. The galaxy would learn what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. Meanwhile, the colonists of Epsilon Ridge began construction on a memorial. They built it from pieces of the Defiance that had fallen to the surface, twisted metal, reshaped into something beautiful and terrible. Tisbin names were etched into polished stone, each one representing a life given freely for others. Port stood before the incomplete memorial as workers welded and shaped metal around him. The colony's children brought flowers salvaged from the agricultural domes and placed them at the base. An old miner saluted the names with tears in his eyes. A young mother whispered thanks while holding her infant close. 2 months after the battle, long rain sensors detected movement at the edge of the system. Porter was helping reinforce The colony's defense grid when the alert came through. His blood ran cold, fearing the Krellians had returned for revenge, but then the identification codes came through and cheers erupted. Across every settlement, Earth's third fleet had arrived, 12 warships real, military vessels with trained crews and proper weapons dropped out of faster than light travel in perfect formation. They had received the Defiance's data and come prepared for war. But the Krellian armada was long gone, scattered and broken, limping back to their empire with a story that would haunt them. The fleet admiral herself shuttled down to meet with Porter and the colony leadership. She was a stern woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles, but when she stood before the memorial, she removed her cap and bowed her head in respect. The Krellian Empire has withdrawn from this entire sector, she told the assembled colonists. Our intelligence suggests they're calling what happened here the human paradox. They cannot understand a species that turns its own death into victory. They fear what they cannot predict. Your Defiance crew taught them to fear humanity. Porter felt something break loose in his chest, not grief, though that was always there. Something else, pride, vindication, the knowledge that his friends had not died for nothing. They had changed the course of the war with one impossible choice. The Admiral turned to Porter specifically. Engineer Porter, Earth Command wants your testimony. They want to understand the technical aspects of what you accomplished, how a cargo hauler damaged beyond repair managed to destroy flagship 10 times its size. Porter straightened despite his injuries. It was not about the ship, Admiral. It was about the people. Captain Shin knew we were already dead, so she made sure our deaths counted for something. She turned our final moments into a weapon they Krellians never saw coming. The Admiral nodded slowly. That's exactly what Earth needs to hear. Will you come? Porter looked back at the memorial, at the names of his friends carved in stone and metal. He thought about Captain Chen's last smile, Marcus' defiant laughter, Alina's whispered prayers. He thought about 37 people who chose to become legends instead of victims. Yes, he said quietly, I'll tell their story. I'll make sure the whole galaxy knows what the crew of the Defiance did here. I'll make sure no one ever forgets that. When you give humans 30 seconds to surrender, we might just give you 30 seconds to regret it. The memorial was completed 3 weeks later. At its center stood a sculpture made from the Defiance's bow plating, shaped into wings reaching toward the stars. Beneath it, the 37 names glowed with eternal light, and at the very bottom, a simple inscription in letters large enough to be seen from orbit. They were given 30 seconds to surrender. They chose impact. They chose us. Remember the Defiance. Porter stood before it one final time before leaving for Earth, his hand resting on the cold metal. The wind carried voices from the colony, children laughing, people living their lives in freedom. Every breath they took was a testament to the sacrifice made in the black void above. I'll tell them, Captain Porter whispered to the memorial. I'll make sure they all know. You did not die, you became eternal. And as his shuttle lifted toward the waiting fleet, James Porter carried with him the echo of defiance that would resonate across the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity had learned its own lesson that day, when pushed to the edge, when given impossible choices. Humans do not break, they impact.